Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we're diving right into a fascinating, microscopic, and honestly incredibly high-stakes battle that pharmaceutical scientists are fighting literally every single day. We're talking about the science of pharmaceutical impurities. You know, when we take medicine, we fully expect it to heal us. But what actually happens when unwanted intruders sneak into the formula? Well, we're going to break down the whole life cycle, the science, and the real-world impact of these uninvited chemical guests.
So, here's our quick roadmap for today. First, defining the intruder. Second, the suspect profiles. Third, the breach. And finally, number 4, the fallout. Let's get into it.
Starting right off with Section 1, defining the intruder. What is an impurity? So at its core, what exactly are we talking about here? By definition, an impurity is an unwanted foreign substance present in a pharmaceutical preparation that compromises its quality or safety. Think of it like this. These are completely useless elements. They're not part of the drug, they absolutely do not help cure you, and actually, they actively degrade the drug substance instead of helping. In the purest sense, it's basically chemical dirt.
And this analogy brilliantly illustrates the stakes for us. Imagine a room you've just meticulously swept. A little bit of dust blows in? Okay, that's harmless dirt. It's an impurity, sure, but you can live with it. But what if someone drops a glass and leaves a sharp shard right smack in the middle of the floor? If you're walking barefoot, that shard is going to cut your foot. That is a toxic threat. In pharmaceuticals, it's the exact same deal. Some impurities are just minor annoyances that slightly degrade quality, but others act exactly like that dangerous glass shard, causing serious toxic harm to the human body if they get packaged into a pill.
Moving right along to Section 2, the suspect profiles, types of drug contaminants. So the crucial takeaway here is that these intruders chemically fall into 3 main categories. First up, we've got organic impurities. These are incredibly tricky because they're super hard to detect during the synthesis process. They often sneak in right from the raw materials or just randomly develop later during storage. Second, we have inorganic impurities. Now, these are a bit different because they contain 0 carbon. We're talking about heavy metals or chemical reagents, and thankfully, we can usually spot these using specific limit tests. And finally, residual solvents. Look, in drug manufacturing, you absolutely need solvents to dissolve materials. But if those dissolving agents aren't totally removed by the end of the process, well, they become impurities themselves. Now, here's a pretty surprising twist in how these impurities behave. While we normally classify them chemically, we can also look at their actual effect. Destructive impurities are exactly what they sound like. They ruin the drug and require complex chemical or physical fixing, like distillation. But sometimes impurities are actually constructive. Yeah, they can be accidentally beneficial. A classic science example is iron. Pure iron is relatively soft, right? But if an impurity of less than 2% carbon accidentally mixes in, boom, you get steel. Sometimes an impurity creates a way stronger product. Although, to be fair, in pharmaceuticals, we almost never want to leave that kind of thing up to chance. All right, let's hit Section 3, the breach, sources of manufacturing impurities. Now, I really want you to think about this for a second. Where do these impurities actually come from? If these modern drug labs are so incredibly clean, how does that metaphorical glass shard get onto the floor in the first place? Let's track the drug's creation journey to find out. The wild thing is, at literally every single step of this process, there's a vulnerability for an impurity to sneak in. First, you mix your raw drug material, the solvent, with your solvent. Then you add excipients. These are the extra bits like binders to hold a tablet together, coloring agents, or flavoring just to make it taste better. Next is the actual manufacturing method, like wet granulation, where big machines process the mixture. And finally, the finished product goes into storage. Guys, every single one of these stages is basically an open door for an intruder. Let's actually break down those entry points with some specific culprits. If the raw material itself is tainted right from the supplier, you might accidentally introduce heavy metals like lead, copper, or silver straight into your batch. No good. Then, if you look at reagents, using something like ammonia during the process can sometimes leave behind really hazardous ammoniated mercury precipitates. And then, of course, there's just process errors. Imagine a worker accidentally adding the wrong excipient or a chemical reaction undergoing accidental oxidation or reduction while mixing. Basically, if your starting materials are flawed, your final product is absolutely guaranteed to be impure.
But here's the kicker. It's not just the materials you put in. It's the room itself, the invisible threat. Even the air in the room can be an intruder. Environmental gases floating around, like hydrogen sulfide or sulfur dioxide, can just settle right into an open chemical mixture and completely ruin it. Even a sudden change in temperature or a weird spike in humidity can alter chemical reactions. This is exactly why sensitive drugs, like antibiotics, absolutely must be manufactured in highly specialized environments where even the air itself is meticulously filtered.
And the threats get way more physical than just gas. During the heavy machinery phase, you face serious manufacturing hazards. We're talking literal fragments of glass, metal, or plastic from the machines breaking off and falling right into the drug mixture. There's also the constant risk of cross-contamination from other drugs or microbes finding a way in. And hey, even if you survive the manufacturing phase perfectly, storage is a total minefield. Improper temperatures can cause chemical instability, like leaving a drug meant for a fridge out in the summer heat. Or think about how termites can silently destroy a book sitting on a shelf. Well, storage pests and physical degradation can quietly destroy a life-saving drug over time in the exact same way.
Which brings us to our final section. Number 4, the fallout, the impact on medicine.
The consequences of all this contamination are incredibly severe. These intruders don't just sit there quietly doing nothing. At best, they might just alter the drug's color, give it a weird odor, or change its texture, which, means patients won't want to take it, and its shelf life is drastically reduced. But at worst, these impurities can cause a complete loss of therapeutic activity. That means the life-saving medicine simply stops working altogether. Or, going right back to our glass shard analogy from earlier, the impurity can turn the medicine dangerously toxic, actively harming the very patient who swallows it.
Which brings us to this final thought. In the quest for human health, perfection isn't just a goal, it's an absolute necessity. We've seen how these impurities are constantly trying to breach the walls, from tainted raw materials and invisible environmental gases to flying plastic fragments and silent storage degradation. It really leaves us pondering this. Are we ever truly winning the invisible battle for purity, or are we just managing the front line day by day? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your curiosity sharp.